On the surface, crabs are harmless, even cute. But if you happen to travel 7,000 feet below the ocean surface, you'll realize the crabs you once found adorable are now something far more disturbing. Their bodies balloon to impossible sizes. They grow fur in places where crabs absolutely should not have fur, and they develop claws that could rip through flesh like scissors through paper. It's like someone took a regular crab, injected it with steroids, and then told evolution to go absolutely insane. But the most unsettling part? The deeper you go, the worse it becomes. These crabs live in a world with no light, crushing pressure, and almost no food. So why do crabs become more terrifying the deeper they live? And what makes them so fundamentally different from their beach-dwelling cousins? To understand why deep-sea crabs are so terrifying, we first need to look at what a normal crab actually is. When you think of a crab, you probably picture something like the blue crab or the Dungeness crab. These are your typical crabs. They live in shallow coastal waters, have a hard shell, 2 claws, and 8 legs. They scuttle around on the ocean floor, hide under rocks, and occasionally make it onto someone's dinner plate. They're usually between 4 to 8 inches across, and while they can pinch you, they're not exactly going to hunt you down. They eat algae, small fish, mollusks, and basically anything they can get their claws on. But they're predictable. They're normal-sized. They follow the rules of what a crab should be. But once you start descending deeper, those rules start to break. And the first place you'll notice something is wrong is around 2,000 feet deep, where you'll encounter the Atlantic deep-sea red crab. These crabs live at depths between 600 and 6,000 feet, and they're already starting to show signs of deep-sea weirdness. They're bright red, which is actually camouflage down here. Red light doesn't penetrate into the deep ocean, so being red makes you basically invisible in total darkness. It's like wearing camouflage that only works in pitch-black conditions. But size-wise, they're still somewhat normal, reaching about 7 inches across. Nothing too alarming yet. But then you go deeper, and that's when things get absolutely horrifying. Around 7,000 feet below the surface, in the pitch-black abyss where the pressure is over 3,000 pounds per square inch, you'll encounter the Japanese spider crab. And this thing is a monster. It has the largest leg span of any arthropod on Earth, reaching up to 12 feet from claw to claw. 12 feet! That's longer than most cars. Imagine walking along the ocean floor in a submarine and seeing this thing emerge from the darkness, its impossibly long legs stretching out like some kind of alien creature. The body itself is only about 16 inches across, but those legs just keep going and going, as if the crab decided that normal proportions were optional. And it can weigh up to 42 pounds. But here's the creepy part. These crabs can live for over 100 years, and if they lose a leg, it just grows back. So you could have a crab that's been crawling around the ocean floor since before World War I, losing legs and regrowing them, getting bigger and bigger over time. They're omnivores and scavengers, which means they'll eat literally anything. Algae, fish, dead bodies sinking from above, other crabs. Nothing is off limits. And because they live so deep, they move slowly, methodically, like something out of a horror movie. You'd see it coming from far away, but there'd be nothing you could do to stop it. Now, the Japanese spider crab is terrifying because of its size, but it's not the strangest deep-sea crab, not even close. Because at 7,200 feet deep, living on hydrothermal vents where the water is scalding hot and full of toxic chemicals, you'll find the yeti crab, and this thing looks like it shouldn't be real. First discovered in 2005 near Easter Island. The yeti crab is about 6 inches long and covered in long, silky, blonde fur. Except, it's not fur, it's setae, bristle-like structures that cover its claws and chest. And it's not there for warmth, it's there to farm bacteria. This crab grows its own food. The yeti crab lives right next to hydrothermal vents, where superheated water spews out at temperatures over 700 degrees Fahrenheit. The surrounding deep sea is freezing cold, around 35 degrees Fahrenheit, so the yeti crab has to balance between being boiled alive and freezing to death. It clings to the sides of these vents, in a tiny sliver of space where the temperature is just right. And in that narrow zone, it waves its hairy claws back and forth through the toxic water, cultivating bacteria on its bristles. The bacteria feed on the chemicals in the vent water, and the crab scrapes them off and eats them. It's essentially farming, in the deep sea, on the edge of a volcanic vent, in total darkness. And here's the even creepier part. These crabs are blind. They have no functional eyes, because there's no light down there anyway. So they're just waving their hairy arms around in the darkness, harvesting bacteria, and living in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Scientists have observed them packed together in densities of up to 700 crabs per square meter, all jostling for the best position near the vents. It's like a crowded subway, except everyone is blind, covered in bacteria-farming fur, and living next to a volcanic hellscape. There are actually 5 known species of yeti crabs, and each one is slightly different. Kiwa hirsuta was the first one discovered. Kiwa tyleri, also called the Hoff crab because its hairy chest reminded scientists of David Hasselhoff, lives near Antarctica in some of the coldest waters any yeti crab has been found in. And Kiwa puravita, discovered near Costa Rica, each species has adapted to its specific vent system, and they all farm bacteria in slightly different ways. But as strange as yeti crabs are, they're not the most unsettling crabs in the deep sea, because there's one group of creatures that makes yeti crabs look normal by comparison: the giant isopods. Now, technically, isopods aren't crabs, they're crustaceans, like crabs, but they're more closely related to the pill bugs you find in your garden. You know, those little roly-poly bugs that curl up into a ball when you poke them? Giant isopods are those. Except they're the size of a football, and they live at the bottom of the ocean. And they look like something that crawled out of a science fiction horror movie. The giant isopod, Bathynomus giganteus, can grow up to 20 inches long and weigh nearly 4 pounds. It has a hard, segmented shell, 7 pairs of legs, and massive compound eyes with over 4,000 individual facets. It looks like an oversized armored bug, and it scuttles across the ocean floor at depths of up to 7,000 feet, scavenging for food. And because food is so scarce down there, giant isopods have adapted to survive without eating for over 5 years. 5 years! There was a giant isopod in a Japanese aquarium that refused to eat for 5 years straight, even though it was offered food every single day. It just sat there, waiting. And when it finally did eat, it gorged itself so much that it could barely move. Giant isopods are carnivorous scavengers. They eat dead whales, fish, squid, basically anything that sinks to the ocean floor. They've been observed attacking fish caught in trawl nets, and one was even filmed latching onto a dogfish shark's face and eating it alive. They have a complex mouth with multiple sets of jaws that work together to pierce, shred, and disembowel their prey. And because they live in such extreme conditions, they've developed an incredibly slow metabolism, allowing them to conserve energy for months or even years between meals. But here's what makes them truly horrifying. Giant isopods are an example of deep-sea gigantism, the phenomenon where deep-sea creatures grow to enormous sizes compared to their shallow water relatives. A regular pill bug is less than an inch long. A giant isopod is 20 inches long. That's a 20x size increase. And scientists still don't fully understand why this happens. Some think it's an adaptation to pressure. Others think it's because of food scarcity, which delays sexual maturity and allows them to grow larger. Some believe it's because colder temperatures increase cell size and lifespan. And others think it's simply because there are fewer predators in the deep sea, so animals can safely grow to massive sizes without being eaten. The truth is, we don't know. And that's what makes deep-sea crabs so terrifying. We've barely explored 5% of the deep ocean. For every species we've discovered, there are likely dozens more we've never seen. And the deeper you go, the stranger things get. So why do deep-sea crabs become so much more horrifying than land crabs? What is it about the deep ocean that transforms these creatures into nightmarish versions of themselves? The answer lies in the environment. The deep sea is one of the most extreme habitats on Earth. There's no sunlight, which means no photosynthesis, which means no plants. The temperature hovers just above freezing. The pressure is crushing, reaching over 1,000 times the pressure at sea level, and food is incredibly scarce. In an environment like this, only the most specialized creatures can survive. And those creatures have to make extreme adaptations. Take size, for example. Deep-sea gigantism isn't just a coincidence, it's a survival strategy. Larger bodies can store more energy, which is critical when food is scarce. A giant isopod can go years without eating because it has massive fat reserves and an incredibly slow metabolism. Its body is basically a walking storage unit. Larger animals also move more efficiently over long distances, which is important when you need to search vast areas of the ocean floor for food. And bigger bodies conserve heat better in freezing temperatures. So in the deep sea, being big isn't just an advantage, it's a necessity. But size comes with a cost. Larger animals need more food to sustain themselves, which is a problem when food is already scarce. That's why giant isopods can shut down their metabolism to near zero levels. They're essentially hibernating while still moving, and when they do find food, they gorge themselves to the point of immobility, storing as much energy as possible for the next famine. Then there's the issue of pressure. At 7,000 feet deep, the pressure is so intense that it would crush a human instantly. But deep-sea crabs have adapted to this. Their exoskeletons are incredibly strong, and their bodies are structured to withstand crushing forces. Some species have thicker shells, while others have more flexible bodies that can compress under pressure without breaking. And many deep-sea creatures have special proteins in their cells that prevent their cellular structures from collapsing. And then there's the food chain. In shallow waters, food is abundant. Sunlight drives photosynthesis, which feeds plankton, which feeds small fish, which feeds larger fish, and so on. But in the deep sea, there's no sunlight. The only food that reaches the ocean floor is marine snow. Tiny particles of dead plankton, feces, and decaying matter that drift down from above. It's not much, and it falls slowly. So deep-sea creatures have to be opportunistic. They have to eat whatever they can find, whenever they can find it. That's why so many deep-sea crabs are scavengers. They can't afford to be picky. But the most important adaptation might be energy efficiency. Deep-sea creatures move slowly. They don't waste energy on unnecessary movement. Giant isopods crawl along the ocean floor at a snail's pace. Yeti crabs cling to hydrothermal vents and barely move at all. Japanese spider crabs take their time, methodically searching for food. Everything is slow, deliberate, calculated. Because in the deep sea, energy is life, and wasting energy is death. And then there's reproduction. Many deep-sea creatures have bizarre reproductive strategies. Female giant isopods develop a brood pouch where they carry their eggs until they hatch. The young emerge as fully formed miniatures of the adults, skipping the vulnerable larval stage entirely. This increases their chances of survival in an environment where predators are rare, but food is even rarer. Yeti crabs, on the other hand, have to leave the warmth of the hydrothermal vents to brood their eggs because the high temperatures near the vents would kill the developing embryos. So females venture out into the freezing cold, risking starvation just to give their offspring a chance to survive. But despite all these adaptations, we still know almost nothing about deep-sea crabs. We don't know how long most of them live. We don't know how often they reproduce. We don't know how they find mates in total darkness. We don't know how many species there are, or how deep they can go, or what the limits of their adaptations are. We've only scratched the surface. And that's what makes them so terrifying. It's not just that they're big, or strange, or covered in bacteria-farming fur. It's that they represent an entire world we don't understand. A world that exists in conditions so extreme that we can barely imagine them. A world where evolution has taken creatures that should look familiar and twisted them into something alien. Consider this: the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean, reaches nearly 36,000 feet deep. We've barely explored it, and every time we send a submersible down there, we discover new species. Some are transparent, some glow in the dark, some are so fragile that they disintegrate when brought to the surface, and some are so strange that scientists can't even figure out what they are. So, what else is down there? What other crabs are lurking in the depths, waiting to be discovered? Are there species even larger than the Japanese spider crab? Are there crabs that have adapted to even more extreme environments? Are there crabs that have developed entirely new survival strategies that we can't even imagine yet? The truth is, we don't know. And that's what makes the deep sea so fascinating and so terrifying. It's a frontier, a place where the rules of biology are rewritten. A place where creatures like the yeti crab can farm bacteria on hydrothermal vents, where giant isopods can survive for years without food, and where Japanese spider crabs can grow legs longer than most humans are tall. And here's the most unsettling part. These creatures aren't anomalies. They're not freaks of nature. They're perfectly adapted to their environment. They're thriving. In conditions that would kill us in seconds, they've found a way to not just survive, but to dominate. They've turned the crushing pressure, the freezing cold, the total darkness, and the starvation-level food scarcity into advantages. They've become the apex predators of the abyss. So the next time you see a crab on the beach, remember this: that cute little sideways walking creature scuttling across the sand, it has cousins, deep-sea cousins. Cousins that are 10 times its size, covered in fur, farming bacteria, and living in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Cousins that can survive without food for years, that can grow legs longer than cars, that can live for over a century. And we've only found a fraction of them. The deep ocean covers over 65% of the Earth's surface, and we've explored less than 5% of it. That means there are millions of square miles of ocean floor that we've never seen, millions of potential habitats where new species of deep-sea crabs could be living right now. What's down there? What's waiting in the darkness? What evolutionary nightmares has the deep sea created that we haven't discovered yet? For all we know, the yeti crab and the giant isopod are just the beginning. There could be crabs the size of cars lurking in trenches we've never explored. There could be species with adaptations so bizarre that we wouldn't recognize them as crabs at all. There could be entire ecosystems built around creatures we've never even imagined. And that's the real horror of deep-sea crabs. Not that they're big or strange or terrifying, but that they're proof of how little we actually know about our own planet. They're a reminder that Earth still holds secrets, that there are still frontiers to explore, that there are still creatures out there that can surprise us, shock us, and force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about life. So why are deep-sea crabs so much more terrifying than land crabs? Because they've adapted to survive in hell, because they've grown to impossible sizes, because they've developed strategies so strange that they seem like science fiction, and because they represent everything we don't know about the deep ocean. And honestly, that's what makes them so fascinating. Because every time we discover a new species, every time we send a submersible deeper, every time we explore another trench, we learn something new about the limits of life on Earth. We learn that life is more resilient, more adaptable, and more creative than we ever imagined. The deep sea is the last great frontier on our planet, and deep-sea crabs are its most terrifying ambassadors. If you want to explore the prehistoric world, check out the video here. Thanks for watching.